Is the PS5 Pro better than a high-end gaming PC? Is the PS5 Pro still a better deal than a 1,500 USD gaming rig? Can the PS5 Pro match the performance of a RTX 4090? Can GTA 6 really reach 60 frames per second, or even 120 frames per second on the PS5 Pro? The answers to these questions are more complicated than you might think. First, I want to share with you what the community thinks. We'll look at arguments between a PC gamer perspective and a Sony Pony perspective, and then we'll look at my take. It all started when Hugo Alvarez laid out a hopeful vision for the PS5 base model, claiming that Rockstar could potentially achieve 60 FPS gameplay with optimized coding that maximizes the full potential of the PS5's hardware. He argued that with focused development, it's possible to harness the custom Zen 2 CPU and GPU architecture, similar to what Guerrilla Games did on the PlayStation 3 with Killzone 2. But the reply from Colin Bryden poured cold water on this optimism, calling it cloud cuckoo land. He countered that no amount of optimization could make up for the raw power gap between a PS5 Pro and high-end GPUs, like the RTX 4090. In his view, the fundamental limits of the PS5's CPU and GPU, combined with the sheer scale of GTA 6's open world, would make anything beyond 30 FPS a pipe dream on base models. They also raised skepticism about Sony's claims of a 45% performance boost on the PS5 Pro, pointing out that teraflops numbers alone are often misleading when it comes to actual gaming performance. The debate raged on, with Victor Hugo doubling down. He referenced past examples where console games like The Last of Us Part 1 needed much more powerful PC hardware to achieve the same performance levels, suggesting that with proper optimization, the PS5 Pro could touch RTX 4090 level performance, at least in some areas. He argued that code optimization could make all the difference, allowing GTA 6 to push performance to levels far beyond what skeptics like Colin were predicting. On the other hand, Colin continued to argue from a hardware-centric perspective, pointing out the massive gaps in raw computing power between current-gen consoles and high-end GPUs. He stressed that no amount of coding could compensate for the huge discrepancy between a 7800 XT GPU, which is likely inside the PS5 Pro, and a 4090. For him, Sony's claims of 300% increases in overall GPU power were nothing more than marketing fluff. Exciting on paper, but disappointing in practice. So, here's how I see the whole PS5 Pro versus high-end PC debate. Honestly, people don't give consoles enough credit for how much optimization work goes into them. Like, remember when everyone was making fun of the PS4's mobile CPU? And then games like The Last of Us Part 2 and God of War Ragnarok came out, and even the PS4 Slim somehow made those games look incredible. It's like magic! I still can't wrap my head around how they pulled that off. Now, when it comes to the PS5 Pro, I'm not saying it's gonna hit RTX 4090 levels. That's a different beast altogether, right? A 4090 is for more than just gaming. It's for hardcore video editing and crazy demanding stuff. But here's the thing, the PS5 Pro at $700? That's a steal when you compare it to a PC with something like an RTX 4070 or a 7800 XT. For pure gaming, especially at 4K 60 FPS, the PS5 Pro is a great deal. Dare I say it's better than all mid-range gaming PCs. And please, we are trying to look at this logically, so please don't come in the comments saying a 1K laptop can outperform a PS5 Pro. Don't do this to yourself. And let's be real, most people aren't trying to spend $1,500 on a PC rig when they can get a PS5 Pro and still have a killer experience. It's about getting the best bang for your buck, you know? Plus, with games like GTA 6 coming up, you know the PS5 Pro is gonna sell like crazy. Now, Hugo Alvarez said that Rockstar can optimize GTA 6 at 120 frames per second on PS5 Pro, and this is where I think it's pushing it a bit too far, but I also doubt it's gonna be 30 FPS on PS5 Pro. But this whole thing about GTA 6 running at 120 frames per second on consoles? Come on, that's just not necessary. For a single-player game, I'd much rather see it optimized for 60 FPS with better textures and graphical details. And yeah, people are kinda misunderstanding what the PS5 Pro can really do, just like they did with the PS4 Pro back in the day. We're not talking about matching a 4090, but for mid-range gaming, the PS5 Pro is gonna crush it. We just gotta wait and see how it really performs when it drops. That's my take on it anyway.
This isn't going to be addressing people who want a high-end PC because, you know, the whole PC ecosystem now is it's kind of moved on from 60 frames per second. It's like 144 upwards
Right.
with VRR. And, for that, you're going to need a more modern CPU architecture. You're going to need like Ryzen 5000 X3D. So, that's kind of the way that is happening in the PC space. And that's not something that's being addressed by the PS5 Pro. It is literally a better looking PS5 experience. It's not high-end PC. It's not really troubling it in that regard.
Let's talk about mid-range PCs versus PS5 Pro, because I have people asking in the comments whether a 7800 XT can match the PS5 Pro. So Rizbo asked, will the RX 7800 be enough for GTA 6? That's a good question, and it really depends on a few factors. The RX 7800 is theoretically more powerful than the base PS5, and honestly, I'm even considering building a rig with that card. But here's the catch. PC versions of games like GTA 6 are going to need more power than a PS5 Pro to hit the same level of performance. That's just how it goes with consoles versus PCs. I've always said, you can't directly compare consoles to PCs. Consoles are purpose-built, highly optimized machines. Sure, with a card like the RX 7800, you can push older games like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Assassin's Creed Unity to higher frame rates and resolutions, especially with unlocked FPS and custom settings. But when it comes to new releases like GTA 6, it's a different ballgame. Look at GTA 4. That game was notorious for running like crap on PCs for years. Optimization is key, and consoles just handle that differently. Now, is the PS5 Pro really that good? Personally, I think the PS5 Pro is a better deal than a mid-range PC build, especially if you're in the US, and looking at a $1,000 to $1,500 budget. People are going to say the PS5 Pro isn't worth it and that we don't need it for these incremental upgrades. This is exactly what they said about the PS4 Pro, and now, years later, everyone agrees that the PS4 Pro was actually necessary. History is repeating itself, and I'm confident that in a year or two, people will be saying the same thing about the PS5 Pro. Next point, whenever Sony drops new hardware, they always have tech that's ahead of the curve. Now, I'm not saying the PS5 Pro is going to outperform a 4080 or 4090, but things like RDNA 4 and PSSR tech will let it squeeze more performance out of games with less power. That's where consoles have the advantage. With a game like GTA 6, if it runs at 60 FPS on the PS5 Pro, it's likely going to run smoother on the console than on a 4080. Simply because of how well the game is optimized for that hardware. Now, I'm seeing all these articles online claiming you can build a gaming PC for $700 that'll outperform the PS5 Pro, and honestly, that's BS. I'm building a rig for other reasons besides gaming, and it's already costing me more than $1,000. Trust me, it's not going to outperform the PS5 Pro when it comes to next-gen games, especially when you factor in those optimizations and the exclusive tech Sony packs into their consoles. Now let's separate fiction and fact. Will the PS5 Pro flop? Unsurprisingly, the discourse around the PS5 Pro suggests it won't be very popular due to its high price, but a recent report from Ampere Analysis seemingly counters that notion. The report outlined that while the PS5 Pro costs significantly more than the PS4 Pro did over their respective base versions, Ampere still predicts that Sony will sell around 1.3 million PS5 Pro units during the console's launch window later this year. This number is down from the 1.7 million PS4 Pro units sold on a time-aligned basis, but Sony will likely be profiting more from each PS5 Pro sale due to the console's higher price. The research firm also expects the lifetime sell-through figures of the PS5 Pro to keep up with those of the PS4 Pro, where the latter accounts for roughly 12% of cumulative PS4 sales. The PS5 Pro is tipped to reach 13 million units sold by 2029, teetering quite close to the PS4 Pro's 14.5 million lifetime sales. A sizable chunk of the PS5 Pro's sales will no doubt be helped by Rockstar's upcoming GTA 6. Moreover, Sony has reportedly secured GTA 6's marketing rights, which could entail bespoke graphics settings for the PS5 Pro and console bundles that include the highly anticipated open-world game. I saw a bunch of people talking about $399 in 2016 adjusted for inflation is almost $700 today. But I did my own research and I got $522 USD. So yeah, even if we factor in inflation, we can see how PS5 Pro is a bit expensive, especially excluding the disk drive and stand. I'm also hearing that Sony is actually testing the future price of the PlayStation 6. So they actually planning to launch the PS6 at around the $700 USD mark. Pretty crazy, right? What do you think of all this? Is this the end of 400 to 500 consoles? And 700 is the new 400? Pretty sucky if you you ask me. But if Sony launches the PS6 in Europe at €800, I can confidently say that without a shadow of a doubt, the next generation will flop, and it will be the beginning of PC gaming dominance. 600? With a disk drive, yeah, you can get away with that. But more? As a Sony pony, I will say, not good.